A report released this year prior to the new sanctions accused the citizen, identified as Sun Sidong, and his company of exporting $28.5 million worth of material to North Korea between 2013 and 2016. The Treasury Department confirmed this number in its announcement on Tuesday. The new sanctions follow an announcement this week that the U.S. State Department would once again list North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism, after being removed from the list in 2008. The designation would trigger new limitations in North Korea's international dealings. In total, the Treasury sanctioned 1 individual, 13 entities, and 20 vessels this week, most tied to North Korea. Among the companies, however, were 4 Chinese groups: Dandong Kahua Economy Trade Co., Limited, Dandong Shang Trading Co., Limited, Dandong Hongda Trade Co., Limited, and Sun's Dandong Dongyan Industrial Co., Limited. The first 3, the Treasury noted, cumulatively exported approximately $650 million worth of goods to North Korea and cumulatively imported more than $100 million worth of goods from North Korea. Most of the products exchanged were types of ore. Dongyan, meanwhile, stands accused of exporting over $28 million worth of goods to North Korea over several years, including motor vehicles, electrical machinery, radio navigational items, aluminum, iron, pipes, and items associated with nuclear reactors. As North Korea continues to threaten international peace and security, we are steadfast in our determination to maximize economic pressure to isolate it from outside sources of trade and revenue while exposing its evasive tactics, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said in the announcement. Dandong is China's largest border city, situated across the Yalu River from North Korea. Much of the business conducted between China and North Korea occurs in Dandong. In June, the U.S. Treasury sanctioned the Bank of Dandong for ties to North Korea, cutting it off from America's global economic network entirely. The U.S. also demanded $4,083,935 as a civil money laundering penalty from Dandong Jicheng Metallic Material Co., Limited, in August. 2 months later, the Treasury froze the company's assets. Jicheng, according to CNBC, shares an email address with Dongyan, Sun's company. CNBC also found evidence that Sun owns a $1 million residence in Long Island, which could potentially aid him in doing international trade. Sun and Dandong Dongyan featured prominently in an investigation published in June by C4ADS, a Washington, D.C., research group. C4ADS found that Sun apparently did establish an American company, named Dongyan Enterprise USA, which could allow him to conduct business with firms around the world with no obvious ties to a Chinese company focused on North Korea, according to the Washington Post. The U.S. State Department asserted on Wednesday that further sanctions on the rogue regime in Pyongyang should not jeopardize the relationship between Washington and Pyongyang. The world has come together behind this issue, recognizing how destabilizing the activities are on the part of Kim Jong-un's regime, spokeswoman Heather Nauert said. We have a good relationship with China that's not going to change because we've made this designation on North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism. I think that North Korea, and I imagine the Chinese would be very upfront in saying this as well, has become a bit of a thorn in their side, Nauert asserted. The Chinese Foreign Ministry responded to the new sanctions on its companies with a blanket rejection of unilateral sanctions. I would like to reiterate that we always firmly oppose the wrong act of imposing unilateral sanctions and long-arm jurisdiction by any country in accordance with its own law, spokesman Lu Kong said. The Chinese state-run Global Times, which typically takes a more belligerent approach to the foreign ministry, stated in an opinion piece on Wednesday that America had gone far beyond the UN Security Council resolutions that impose sanctions on Pyongyang, calling the new sanctions presumptuousness. Both North Korea and the U.S. are violating UN Security Council resolutions, the Times claimed, complaining that Liaoning Province, where Dandong is located, has suffered economic losses due to America's insistence on curbing North Korea's nuclear threat. North Korea has responded to being relisted as a state sponsor of terrorism by calling the move clearly an absurdity and a mockery of world peace and security. Follow Francis Martel on Facebook and Twitter.